Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hello, Paly freshman parents. Welcome to our very first coffee of the year. Woo! Along with the other class reps, Adriana, Angela, and Mira, I'm delighted to see you all here. And our goal is to finish by 9:30. So I'm Kira. I have a freshman girl and a senior boy. And though this isn't what we envisioned for our kids this school year, it for sure will be memorable. And we're all in this together. On that note, I'm going to try something a little different so that we sort of all land here together. Let's just all take one deep breath together through your nose for 5 minutes and out your mouth for 5 seconds and out your nose for 5, out your mouth for 5. Here we go. Ready? So thank you. I'd be remiss not to remember the lives lost and their families on 9/11/2001 and to commemorate the heroism of all those who served on the scene. And thank you to the firefighters, first responders, and healthcare workers today for their continued heroism. Just a side note here. So as I ran through the neighborhood on Wednesday underneath orange skies, I noticed that in almost every house, at least one window glowed blue from a computer of a student or a professional dutifully working from home. And it seemed the epitome of like quiet resilience. I know a lot of people unfortunately have it a lot worse, and my heart goes out to them. But we can still be very proud of how our kids have adjusted to this temporary new normal. And we can be very thankful for the teachers and the staff that have so beautifully risen to the occasion. And we're super lucky to have 2 of those wonderful folks with us today. The second half of this meeting will have Coach Nelson Gifford. He's the athletics director and varsity football coach. And if you didn't catch him last night, he spoke beautifully about the whole program. And now it's my pleasure to introduce you to Greer Stone, Paly's Student Activities Director. Just a side note, his mother was my son's brilliant 4th and 5th grade teacher at Ohlone, one of my all-time favorites. And also he's running for city council, if you've seen the signs. And speaking of the democratic process, I just have 2 quick public service announcements. Be sure to complete your census by September 30th, and you can do this online, and it's imperative. And be sure to vote early this year. Check to make sure you're registered today. I've heard from countless folks who thought they were registered just to find out that they weren't. So vote.org is an excellent website to check. Please do it today, and then vote as early as you can, preferably mail in. So anyway, I've talked long enough. Okay, without further ado, here's Student Activities Director Greer Stone.
Hello. Thank you, Kira, for that introduction. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on a Friday morning. Hopefully, we all got our coffees. I think we're going to need it, especially today's supposed to be, I think, the worst air quality day I've heard. So we all need maybe an extra shot of coffee. So yeah, it's wonderful to be here. I'm really thrilled to be coming back to Paly because I grew up in this school district. I went to Duveneck and Green, and I went to Paly myself as a student. And one of the things that I've always remember about the Paly community is just the Paly spirit and the school pride and the incredible activities and the amazing just tradition that this school has. So I definitely feel big weight that I'm carrying to make sure that we're continuing some of those incredible traditions that this school has, but also kind of forging ahead too with a new future of new activities and events, and trying to make the school as inclusive and welcoming to different demographics of students and interests as well as possible. So that's kind of one of my missions for this school year, and especially for this school year. You know, at least one fortunate thing for us being in distance learning, at least for myself, is that Matt Hall left, I think, the most incredibly large shoes to fill during his time here. And so I kind of have a new, very unprecedented year to be able to kind of make my mark and try to create the closest sense of school community and spirit as I can while we're distance learning. And so that's really been one of the major objectives of ASB and myself this year, is how do we create a sense of community, a sense of belonging, that sense of school spirit when we can't actually be physically together. And so we've really been doing a lot in the short amount of time that we've been together to be able to fulfill those goals. So I can't believe we're already 4 weeks into the school year. That's just incredible. It really is flying by. And I've heard good feedback from a lot of students as well about distance learning compared to what it was in spring. So that's promising at least. But so I'll just give you like a quick kind of what ASB has done, what we're working on, and some of our plans for the rest of the semester. So really to kind of start the school year with, ASB was in charge of freshman orientation. So this year we had to do freshman orientation, obviously online. So we did small breakout presentation rooms where we had ASB officers leading the discussion and the introduction to freshmen, came up with slides, did a Q&A. It was highly successful with a few kind of technology blips along the way. Also did a virtual tour for students. Those are all still up on the palyasb.com website. So invite you to check that out if you're interested. We also were in charge of doing class welcome meetings the first week of school, which was another unprecedented kind of part of the schedule for our first week of school. Is really kind of, again, meant to create a sense of school community. And so ASB created these videos meant for their various classes. So of course we had a freshman, sophomore, junior, and a senior class meeting. And those are pretty entertaining. Those are all up on our YouTube page as well. So I'd invite you to check them out. A lot of them showcase what the students did over the summertime and how, about being appreciative of what their teachers have been doing during this time and their kind of hopes and dreams and goals for this school year. So those are pretty inspiring videos. We've been working on freshman elections and kind of changing how these applications and these elections have been run in a virtual manner. And we're also working right now on clubs for the year, because I think that's probably going to be one of the best ways we're going to be able to allow students to be able to connect with each other. So we've had 99 clubs apply, which has been great. We did the final club approval this past week, and we have our first ever virtual club fair coming up next Wednesday, September 16th at lunch. And basically how that's going to work is we're going to send out a Google slideshow on Monday where all of the clubs are gonna put up one slide that gives a brief description of their club with a link to a YouTube video where they'll further introduce the club presidents, give more information about the clubs, and then they'll also need to provide a Zoom link. So that way on Wednesday during the virtual club fair, if a student is interested in a club, wants to meet the club presidents, wants to ask some questions, they'll be able to do that next Wednesday during that virtual club fair. And then clubs will be able to begin pretty much immediately after next Wednesday is when clubs will be able to officially start meeting. So we're really excited for that. And and then one other ASB success that we've had so far too this year. We did Paly swag bags for all the classes, and especially for our seniors. I'm sure many of you are aware, seniors have a tradition that on the first day of school, seniors wear their green camo, and it's just something that seniors always look forward to. I remember looking forward to it when I was a student here. So we were able to recreate that for them and created a senior swag bag day on the first day of school, where seniors were able to come out in their camo, pick up their swag bags, sign an inspiring message on a banner that we put up, listen to music, and it was highly successful. A lot of students came out. Unfortunately, we did kind of see that students are not the best with social distancing, so we had to kind of keep reminding them of that. But overall, it was a really fun, successful event. And right now we are within ASB. We're breaking up our ASB officers into various subcommittees right now. And the subcommittees are, there's a class bonding, fundraisers, and Zoom events subcommittee. There's a movie nights subcommittee. There's an ASB fishbowl subcommittee, a virtual spirit week / days, a virtual sport events, ASB social media, and advisory curriculum. So those are the subcommittees that they've been broken up into. And basically what they're going to be doing for the next couple of weeks is really working on plans on how to effectuate a lot of our goals and our missions for this year and turning them into actual events, mostly virtual events pretty much all virtual events for this semester. And again, working on ways to create that sense of community and school spirit. So they're going to be presenting those in a couple of weeks to ASB, and hopefully then after that, we'll really be able to start putting out some really exciting events for the student body. So that'll be the end of my monologue, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I was just curious what the fishbowl subcommittee is.
The fishbowl subcommittee is to plan, I'm just going to kind of read the description that we came up with, plan a town hall style event open to the public for students to directly ask ASB members their questions. Our goal is to make this a quarterly event, so experiment with the first fishbowl in order to make subsequent ones even better. When and where will the event be held is still unknown. Who will be on the ASB panel? Still unknown. How the students are going to ask the questions? Are they going to be screened? All those things are the type of questions that that subcommittee is going to be working on. So it's really meant to be more of kind of an informative type of event, because there's so many students with questions right now about how things are going to work. I've been getting a lot of questions on Spirit Week, and I'm sure if that's one of your questions, I'll cut it off now. We've already voted. We recognize there's no way we're going to be able to do an on-campus Spirit Week like we normally do in October. So to just kind of avoid, I think one problem has been this kind of constant, we get our hopes up that things are going to get back to normal, and then it's quickly dashed a few weeks later. So we wanted to kind of create a little more consistency for students. So we early on said, let's just move Spirit Week back to the winter or the spring, because that's when football is going to be played. That's when basketball is going to be played as well. And then that way we can tie Spirit Week either to a football game or a basketball game and hopefully be able to have it on campus. And if we get to that point where we're not, we'll adapt to it being a virtual Spirit Week. We're definitely going to have Spirit Week. Our hopes is it'll be in person, but you know, our students, like you said, Kira, have shown incredible resilience, and they're going to adapt, and it'll be okay.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much, Greer. Yeah, you're doing so much to make this year fun and exciting and memorable. So we really owe a lot to you. Thank you so much. There don't seem to be any more questions. So thank you. You were so informative. Angela, do you have one?
Yeah, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I was just wondering, do you know at what, there's like the purple, red, whatever tier system for the counties. At what tier are we able to have some meetings on campus, or where like the kids can meet? Do you know?
Well, my understanding, I'm not the expert on this, but my understanding is now that we've entered the red tier, that as long as we don't slip back over the next 14 days, that the county will be able to start reopening schools. And I don't know to what extent and what extent the district is going to go along with that. But my understanding is that then in 14 days, if we're able to reopen schools, we can likely start having students back on campus in limited capacities as well. So, but that is far above my pay grade.
Okay, and we have one hand raised. Let's see. Noelle, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. Wonderful to meet everybody virtually. Thank you. This is great. There was some information last night at the Paly Athletics that was sort of new to me as far as where I find information, palysports.com. So I was like, gosh, I wished I'd known more about this earlier in the school session, and I realized that this is a new normal kind of environment. So when kids would go to class, they would hear about these things, and we would have learned sooner about this activity. I just want to respond. I was just, frankly, as a parent who has family members who are in the high risk, I was a little concerned about how the dissemination of materials was handled. I know that you spoke to the fact that you realized that students are great they look forward to seeing each other and they were not social distancing. I was very concerned that this was done indoors in the hallways, that these are all criteria that helps to the transmission of the viruses. And so as I speak to some of my other friends and family where they've done drive-through materials, even our local elementary school did that outdoors, I was not pleased with the way it was handled. And I wanted to express that. And as parents and the school looks at breaking students back in cohorts, these issues are important to think about, that students don't have the frontal lobe cortex that's working for them in making good decisions. So we need to one model. I'm sorry, Rebecca.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry, Noelle. Can you explain what you learned to those of us who had to miss the meeting? I had to miss the meeting, and what you learned last night that you're referring to.
That I'll get back to that, but I'm on topic here about
sorry.
what we're learning about the virus and transmission, and the fact that adolescence, the brain is developing. We need to, as adults, as parents, to model excellent behavior, and we need to think that students are not going to make the best decisions when they get them together. So we need to be really emphasizing that and not bringing students into indoor settings. So that's what I have to say. Rebecca, it's palysports.com. I didn't know that that was where we go to find athletics. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Noelle. Yeah, that website is really chock full now, so it's really awesome. And Coach Giff will be speaking to more of that soon. Greer, looks like we have one more question. I don't think you answered this. Since Spirit Week is postponed, can we celebrate Unity Day this year in October?
Yeah, yes, Allison, great point. We do already have a plan to basically do a modified type of Spirit Week in October when we would typically have Spirit Week. So kind of coming up with like costume contests and things like that. So we do have a plan. Connecting it to Unity Day, I hadn't thought about that yet. I think that's a fantastic idea, and I'm gonna write that down and bring it up with ASB, because I think that's important. And then Noelle, also just I want to thank you for bringing up those points, and it's absolutely true. And I think everyone's kind of learning through this process and recognizing what can we do safely, what can we not do, and I think those are all really important points. And I'll make sure that I share your feedback with administration as well.
Thank you so much, Greer.
Thank you.
We really appreciate your time. You're awesome. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Thanks, Gary. I appreciate it. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe and try to avoid this terrible air quality.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sure. When are the clubs going to be held virtually?
So once we're done with virtual club fair next Wednesday, right after that, clubs will be able to start hosting their clubs. So
and when does that happen?
Sorry?
When does it happen during the day? I have no idea.
Oh God, it depends on the club. So most clubs are being held at lunchtime. There are some clubs that are being held after school. I don't think there's any clubs being held in the morning. So vast majority are at lunch, some are after school. A big kind of difficulty is they need to have a teacher advisor, a credential teacher in the club meeting with them. And so that kind of restricts their timing as well. Most don't want to do after school. So most are going to be at lunch.
Thank you.
No problem.
May I ask
Angela?
a question? I was just wondering about kids socializing. So I know there's the club aspect, and excited about the athletic part of it as well. But just, do kids have a good way of getting each other's emails or contact information like in their classes? So the kids in the same classes, are they pretty well able to communicate with each other during classes, and just to foster that bit of socialization that they would get kind of after class, in between classes and such?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that comes down to really the individual teacher decision as far as how they're using their class time. I will say that that the district has done a really good job at providing extra trainings and education over the course of the summer to us, to kind of to give us best practices and tips to be able to foster that. So one of the ways that I do it is I provide a lot of breakout rooms and opportunities for students to be able to discuss content together individually, and always give them a little extra time so they can have a little more kind of social interaction. We were also encouraged to provide more time at the beginning of this school year on community building within the courses before really getting into the content. So the hopes is that they've been able to socialize in that way. But as far as students being able to kind of get each other's information and all that, yeah, I think that kind of, I mean, they can message each other in Schoology, and that's a pretty simple way of just typing in a person's name. But as far as getting personal emails and phone numbers, that just kind of, I think, has to come through their own asking each other for it.
I got a quick question, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem.
My name is Subin, and yeah, I have a ninth grade, as everyone has, and for the clubs, do you list them as online only, or I mean, sometimes they meet offline for the year?
So if we're going to be online only for the entire school year?
I mean, I know that some clubs will have online only, and some clubs will have offline. So could you kind of list them as online only or offline included?
Well, so for as long as we are distance learning, clubs will have to be virtual. Once we're able to be back on campus safely, then clubs will be able to also start meeting physically. But yeah, so I would just say that's kind of the easy way to follow it. If we're distance learning, clubs are also doing the same thing.
Thank you for clarification.
You're welcome. Thank you. And I saw Amy's iPhone had a question. Do you have to join the club by a certain date, or can they join anytime during the year? No, students can join clubs at any time. So definitely encourage them to be a part of the virtual club fair. Of course, it's always better to be able to join from the beginning when the more kind of community building's happening, but a student can join a club at any time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Greer. We had those questions roll in there at the end. That was
Absolutely.
great, everybody. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. All right. And now to Coach Giff. I just unmuted you.
Ah, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's good to be here. This is my second one. I'm excited.
Yay. Thank you for being here. We're so excited to have you.
Yeah, no, it's good being here, and I love a chance to interface with the parents. It's a lot of fun. Last night's deal was just more me just talking into a screen, which is very, very odd. I don't think I'm ever going to get used to it, and I don't want to get used to it, to be honest with you. So it's going to be great when I can finally get back in front of people.
For sure. Well, we're happy to have you here. And yeah, you did a great job last night. Thank you so much. And I imagine the parents here may have some, freshman questions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And any feedback that you have on last night, if you were in attendance, I would love it. It was definitely short notice. Everything that we're doing right now is kind of being adjusted from one week to the next. And before we started, any kind of return to play, we just wanted to try to get out at least as much information as we could to as many people as we could before we started bringing kids back on campus, and just open up some opportunities to answer questions. And I'm sure as people kind of clicked into the session that we're speaking to coaches, they probably found out there weren't a lot of answers. Our season twos don't even have their schedules finalized yet. So we don't even know when they're playing or what days or where they're playing. Maybe they'll be at the middle school, maybe they'll be at the high school. We're not entirely sure. So this entire year is all about adjusting and being flexible. It's certainly not ideal, and it's not the way I've, existed as a coach and a teacher, but it's the new normal, and that's why I'm sitting in a room right now, and not at school. It's different, but I have coffee, so that's what that works.
Same coffee, thank goodness.
Coffee, yeah.
So someone said, can Coach G please just summarize a bit of what you talked about last night? And that's kind of what you're doing. They're asking if it's all on Paly Sports.
Yeah, so a lot of what I talked about is on Paly Sports. The entire meeting, and I'm going to post it into the chat right now. I did broadcast just the first portion, so it was set up into two sections. One was just me talking for 30 minutes, just kind of giving a brief overview of where we were as an athletic department and where this kind of the section in the state is in terms of the return to play. So if you want to check that out, go right ahead. And then the second sessions were all just parents having the opportunity to maybe check in with teams or coaches that they were interested in participating in. So we tried to bring them all together so that parents could have a chance to at least have a little bit of face time with their coaches and ask any pressing questions. Unfortunately, those sessions weren't recorded. So the other piece of it is just going on to palysports.com and going through it. If you want, I can walk everyone through the site, or better yet, probably the best way to do it is just to get on there and just start clicking. We've tried to put as much information on there as possible, trying to update it as frequently as possible. It's something that when I got the job last year, there was a lot of desire for a single place for all the sports information, right? Were parents supposed to go to Infinite Campus, or were they supposed to go to the Google Calendar? Were they supposed to go to the main school webpage? Where do I find practice plans? Is it on Swimtopia? Is it on TeamSnap? Is it on Band? So we're really just trying to make things easier for all the parents, particularly if you have children that play multiple sports, so that you're not having to use all these different platforms depending on what season or time of year it is. We really are trying to bring our coaches together and get them all coordinated, and they've been doing a fantastic job. I mean, I'll be honest with you, trying to get our 22 head coaches all with Zoom sessions on a 2-day notice to get their meetings prepared. I was actually surprised we actually got that many in attendance. It was pretty impressive on their part. So they're going to be kind of making some adjustments in terms of how they're able to use Zoom and some of our other tools to connect with students. And then we're also going to be, as we move, kind of constantly updating the website. If you were to ask me, what's the best way to stay up to date on that, it would probably be join either your respective team's Remind account, or just join the Palo Alto Athletic Department Remind account. I just send out posts through there, just quick blurbs about different stuff that I've posted. Or you could download the app. We actually have an app for iPhone or Google Play Store. The app's okay, but what it does do is every time I post something on the website, like a news article, it'll just send out a little push notification to your phone. So when I submitted, hey, we come back, my mom actually sent me a text message. She's like, are you guys going back to practice? I just got an alert on my phone. Did you see that alert? And I'm like, yeah, I sent that alert. That was me. I did that. She wasn't, she didn't know where it was coming. So we have that. And it goes back to the fact that we've got 1,000 student athletes. We do. We have 1,000 student athletes. We've got, I think, 22 teams. I think there's like 50 coaches, and it's just a lot of people. And how do we get that information out as quickly as we can, as efficiently we can, as consistently as we can? And like I've said, if you look on the website and there's something there that you think that should be on there, let me know and I'm going to get it on there. And that's typically what I've actually been doing as we've gone through this process. And every time a parent asks me a question, and I go, oh, okay, I bet other people think that too. Let me try to get it on there so that all the parents can have their questions answered. All right. Sorry, that was a really long answer to nobody's question.
No, that was great. Thank you. We've got a lot of questions rolling in. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
Good thing we have extra time for you.
Yeah.
People are asking specifically, how can freshmen join track and field? How can they join cross country? Do they have to submit a pediatrician clearance form?
So those are really good questions. And, what is up is down right now in California. So based on CIF regulations, we're in summertime rules. So even though it's the fall, even though we're in school, the rules that would apply to any summer workouts or limitations on practices apply now. So any sport could work out. You can have contact with any coach. You could attend, any number of workouts. Obviously, because of the COVID restrictions, none of that is the case. And because students are in school, we're not hosting any workouts early in the morning. So what we've done is we said, in terms of morning workouts can only be held on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Those are the late start days for our students between 8 and 9 o'clock. And then workouts can be held after 4 p.m. So that means every student's day is kept strictly for school. In discussing with the district, they just felt that was the best way to avoid any conflict or missing classes, in the online medium. So those right now are restrictions. Where we're trying to still work this out is in instances where we think we're going to have some facilities limitations, seeing if we can have access to the middle schools, particularly when it comes to swimming or just aquatic sports, because the cohorts have to be so small, and because we have so many swimmers and water polo players. How can we actually get the kids in the pool without being there all night and without keeping our coaches there all night as well, right? Because that's the other element of it. In terms of joining a sport, go on palysports.com, email the coach, or just check out when the workouts are being held. Essentially, anybody can go anywhere. And you don't need a physical or anything along those lines. You just show up and go. That being said, some coaches are hosting workouts, as I'm sure they said, and some coaches aren't. Some of our season 2 sports aren't doing much. Some of them have started. I know basketball is going to be going and doing workouts, and they're in season 2. Baseball is not, mainly because they don't have a field. So go figure. I think lacrosse might be doing some stuff. Field hockey may not, even though they're season 1. So every sport is going to be different, in part because every coach's availability is different throughout the year, right? And everyone's schedule has been turned upside down a little bit, I think. So it's just, what I've said is we all have to be flexible, right? Things that we've done in the past, they're just not going to be the same. There's probably going to be some weekend practices. There's probably going to be weekend games. We're going to play. I know games are going to be played on Mondays. We've never played games on Mondays because Monday games are terrible, but we're going to have to play Monday games. And that's going to just be a league mandate, and it's what we're going to have to do. We're probably going to have more quad nights, more nights in the gym where we have 4 games in a row. But there is a big point of emphasis, just so everyone understands, that we are trying to play our games later. There's a big movement league-wide and really, statewide, right, is to keep kids in the classroom so they're not missing class. So as much as possible, we're going to try to play our games later, do a lot more games that aren't side by side and back to back, and make them back to back. We do have lights in the majority of our facilities, and the nice part about it is something like all the sports in the season 2. Well, unless we have fires that cover the sun and blot out the sun, there will be light outside. So we won't have to worry about there being lights as the season 2 progresses.
Nice. And is there is there a document that shows the dates, the overlap between sports seasons? Is that on?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is. Is it possible for me to screen share? It may be easier for me to show it to everybody. And
sure.
I can show you exactly where it is.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead and try. I think
Okay,
it'll
let
work.
me see. Oh, look at that. It's going to let me do it. All right. So here's the website. I think I still have it on the main page. It says fall workouts to resume. This is the guidance. Okay, right here. So this is the big one about the dates. So if you have any questions about dates, about starts, about practices, just general season, this is the doc. So this was a news article that we posted, back in July, that when the CIF finally released what they were going to do, and then the CCS followed that up. And so we go here on the calendar, and here are the dates. Sorry, my internet is terribly slow. All right, let me zoom in a little bit. So you can see here season one. So season one is, relatively small. So you've got cross-country field hockey, football, boys and girls water polo, competitive cheer. The only change really in season one, in the fall season, right, is boys volleyball has now been moved into season one with girls. So that's going to be probably our biggest, in terms of facilities conflict. That's going to be the big one. Okay, no one's going to want to hear that, but practice starts December 14th. Yes, that is the middle of finals. Yes, it means that they have to practice during winter break. Yes, they need to attend. They're going to want to attend. Why? Because when does competition start? First day of contest, December 28th. How about that? So you could certainly, go on vacation and not attend, but they're going to play a game and have no work in. In all that, it's not my fault. I didn't choose this. If it was up to me, we would have started January 9th. We would have just rolled right into it. It would have been perfect. Instead, they decided December 14th. And they did this in part because they want to keep the seasons their normal length. So there have been no lost games. We still have a full out of league schedule, and we still have a full league schedule and playoffs, sectional, and for some cases state, all the way through. So in order to squeeze them in and not push us all the way out into the middle of the summer, this is why they started it in December 14th. Again, we have to make those adjustments. So you can see first day of contest is somewhere around the 28th, although when your first contest is officially depends on the coach's league schedule. In the case of football, we have to play our scrimmage on January 2nd. So that's going to be fun. And then you can see there's section final dates. So every team's going to get to play in sectionals, and then you have the state final dates as well. So for the vast majority of the teams, there's going to be the opportunity to play both in sectional, certainly in sectional, and definitely in state. Now, it's season two where it gets a little hairy. Now, there is some staggering of start times. So you can see these first few sports all start. Practice starts the 22nd of February. You notice that the league dates end for some of these sports usually about mid-March. So there will be some overlap there. But for the majority of the season two sports, the start date is the 15th of March. So the level of overlap is about what it typically is during a normal school year. Usually the last week of the regular season of a sport is the start of practice for the next season. So usually there's about a 1 week overlap. And then if the fall season was going to the playoffs, you make that accommodation. So kids transitioning from one sport to the next, that's not, that's common. Our coaches are used to dealing with that, and you just communicate, with your coach, and no coach is going to hold it against the kid if they're, in the playoffs, competing for a championship. The real issue is going to be if you're, say, a swimmer and a basketball player. What do you do? What do you do if you're a wrestler and a baseball player? What do you do if you play basketball and lacrosse? How does that work? No easy answer on that one. The challenge is, could you technically play both? Yes, you could. And could you work it out with your coach and say, hey, I'm going to attend these practices these days and these practices these days? Sure. The real problem is, you know, what happens if contests end up on the same day? Which one do you go play? And of course, how are you going to fit when other people on your team are practicing every single day and you're only there half the time? You know, will you actually be getting a fair shot to compete because you're only there half the time? You know, so the CIF changed the rules really so that athletes who participate in a club wouldn't feel forced to choose between their high school team and their club, particularly within girls sports of soccer, softball, and volleyball. They really wanted to make sure that high school programs didn't fold because kids felt like, oh, well, I signed up for my club. I'm just going to go ahead and play my club season. And then next thing you know, there's no girls soccer team for your high school. We don't have that problem. We've got like tons of athletes, but this is like an overall problem throughout the state. So they really wanted to make sure that kids didn't feel like they had to choose between their club and their high school program. Now, that being said, personally, I would recommend choosing and definitely choose Paly. It's in part because it's hard. It's hard, you know, school's hard, sports are hard, you need your rest and recovery. You know, it's the reason we're starting school later, you know, and when you talk about athletic development, you know, sleep is a big part of training. You know, you got to let your body recover. You got to let your nervous system recover. You know, it's also why, you know, sometimes playing year round is actually harms athletic development. You know, they talk about, you know, all the athletes, the AAU athletes in basketball, some in soccer who are dealing with these catastrophic injuries at 18, 19, and 20 years old. Because when you're a high level athlete and you're playing year round, you give your body no time to recover. I mean, you know, if you're following the NBA season with, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on his name, the New Orleans Pelicans, but right, I mean, he had to miss, you know, half his rookie year at 19 years old with, you know, crazy ankle and knee injuries that he shouldn't be experiencing, except the fact that he's been playing basketball every single day, probably for the past 15 years. You know, and he's 18, right? But that's what happens when you're an elite athlete and the club circuit never stops. So that's the schedule. It's not the best, but it's better than nothing. Oh, and sorry, I almost left out my favorite part. So yes, the season one parents and kids, they all get messed up because, hey, you know, winter break is taken away. Well, guess what? Your first 3 weeks of summer vacay, yeah, those are gone too if you're in season two, because they go straight out into June 26th, right? Because we're all going to state. We're all going to state, so just plan on not going anywhere, okay? So, right, we got section finals, we're winning the section, and we're going to state. So tell everybody, hey, I'm free in July. That's the plan.
That's awesome. Thank you. And thanks for mentioning the injuries. I know some parents and kids have a tendency to push and just want to play everything. We've had a recurring question. What's the difference between palysports.com and palyathletics.com? And what is Volt and how does one get on there?
Got it. Okay, so Paly Sports is the new website. Paly Athletics is the old website. The reason Paly Athletics exists is because we can't get the company to take it down. They refuse. They're refusing to take it down, and they won't sell us the domain. So I had to buy a new domain, and that's what it was. So I tried. I fought with them. You know, it's the whole reason we switched vendors is because they were so bad at service. We couldn't update it. We couldn't get anything we wanted on there. So we're like, hey, we're leaving. And they're like, well, we're going to keep the site up. I was like, why? You know, well, they're bad at their job. So I'm sorry that that's a distraction. And, you know, we've tried to put in links to redirect people there. And once the domain expires, hopefully it expires, they'll take the site down. You know, we're not paying them to keep it up. So I'm not sure why they're doing it.
Can you adjust the homepage and just have it either have the link to the new site or they won't even let you update it?
I try. No, I updated it. I put it on there, but the site's so bad, it's not even good at that. You know, it is. It's just not a good site. It's really hard to navigate. It's really hard to update. It's hard to get information on there. What I like about the new site, if you go through it, like the pictures, for instance, Karen Hickey and Jenna Hickey, your daughter, did all the pictures. They have access to it. Parents, like if you're interested in being a teen parent and helping out, and you're relatively tech savvy, you can be granted access to your team. Help with updating the schedule, help with posting pictures, that kind of thing. One of our basketball parents and baseball, she's a basketball and baseball parent, Toya Black, she did that for both her son's baseball team and basketball team. They had the best schedule of any team. I mean, it was detailed, it was precise, you knew exactly when you were getting into class. And so that's incredibly useful for parents. I know a girls soccer program last year, their team parent also posted on the site when they were having like their spaghetti dinners, right? The locations of the team. It's particularly important when practice times change from one day to the next, right? Like cross country, typically is going to practice at 4 o'clock for 6 at the track, right? But girls soccer, you might be on the stadium, you might be on the El Camino field, you might be practicing at 4, you might be practicing at 7. You never know. So having that access and having that information up there is good. And the one thing that does also happen on there is our dismissal times, right? When are dismissal times, when are the departure times? So we keep that there. The new site is palysports.com. And then the question was Volt.
Yeah.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, so Volt is online strength and conditioning software. So context, we get the new gym, $42 million facility, amazing weight room. But of course, it's just a tool. You need a teacher, right? And so our past athletic directors did a great job securing a strength and conditioning coach stipend to bring in certified strength and conditioning coaches to come and work with our athletes. The problem was that the stipend's not enough to keep anybody. So over the past 3 years, we've had 3 strength and conditioning coaches, each with their own style, unique, whatever, and their availability is incredibly short, right? So they could show up at 3 o'clock and leave at 5:30. So if you were an athlete trying to work out maybe during your prep or later than that or before that, it wasn't going to happen. And the reality is we have 1,000 students and 1 teacher. That's not going to work. It's just not going to happen. And every strength coach has their own level of expertise, their own comfort, right? Some are going to be really good with soccer or volleyball or football or baseball, and not so good with others. So this was our opportunity to invest in a software that was adaptable, flexible, and would allow students to be able to have a program that's built for them. And I'll give them some training, so to speak, even though it's virtual, year round. So I can actually, let me just pull it up and show what it is. Log in. Now, every team has an account, so I'm going to share my screen. So every team has an account. So this is the coaching side of it. So as a coach, this is what I see. This is football. You can notice we have ones for badminton, baseball, basketball, all of them there. The real trick about how to get on Volt, the coach has to set it up. So the coach has to onboard the athletes. The coach will talk to one of the consultants from Volt. So we have a person who sets up the programs there. And then once the program's set up, the coach is in charge of monitoring it, working with the athletes, tracking their progress. So we're in the process right now of transitioning our workout from one session to the next. But it's really, really cool. My foray into coaching started as a strength and conditioning coach. And I understand kind of the level of work and detail that goes into making a program really work for an athlete and how challenging that is. And the minute I saw this and realized that the level of flexibility that it gave coaches and athletes, I knew this was just such a worthwhile investment. And I really wanted to make sure that this was available to all our athletes. Probably one of the coolest features is the fact that every workout has a video attached to it. And if an athlete's at home like they are right now, and they can't do this exercise because they don't have it. So alternating dumbbell press, they have the ability to replace that workout or replace that exercise with one that they can do at home, right? So that for me is huge, right? So the exercise gets replaced. Now they can do it, and because it's all online and all the data is recorded, coaches can monitor their progress from afar. And one of the things that I'm excited about, because I'm a data junkie and a sports nerd, is you can track your progress. If you're a freshman and you log on here and you're not very strong, not very fast, not very big, because you're a freshman, and that's what freshmen are. All of a sudden you can track your progress as you move along, and all of a sudden when you're a senior, you're like, wow, look at all this work that I did. Look at this history. It becomes a living resume of your physical and athletic progress. And let's face it, we play sports because we're competitive. We like stuff like this. Hey, I did 60 push-ups. How many did you do? Oh, you did 61. Great. I'll do 70 tomorrow. That's what makes us better. That collaborative competition, and I think stuff like this is always good. Data is important, and that's why we went with it.
Awesome, thank you. And folks are asking about COVID health guidelines. Are there any general guidelines, masks versus face shields? And this person said specifically cross country and field hockey.
So masks for coaches, masks for kids to and from practice. Athletes are not required to wear a mask during workouts, but we are requiring keeping a physical distance of 6 feet or more within each cohort of 14. At one point we were wearing face shields. The coaches work. It's just easier to get your voice projected when you're wearing the face shield. But I guess there's always new data, and the new data is the face shield's not as effective as the mask, so coaches are now wearing masks. Now I have coaches saying, well, can I yell from the bleachers? Can I yell from really far away? I'm like, okay, well, we'll find out. But those are the protocols right now. Probably the big change between the summer and now is that now we have a little health check-in thing. So we're going to be printing out forms and kind of pasting them around the facilities. All a kid has to do is take their phone out, hold it up to a QR code, fill out a little Google form, check the boxes, make sure they're healthy, and then they're all set and they're done. And they'll just do that every time they come onto campus along with the coaches. Outside of that, our big thing on the protocol, and this was mentioned earlier, is we just have to emphasize to our kids they can't be hanging out after the workouts are done. They have to leave, and this was the struggle that I had over the summer. We told them, hey, don't hang out. And then I roll up to practice, and what do I see? They're all hanging out, right? So we got to figure out a way to turn the bleachers over. Don't sit down over there. Don't be over there. Of course, we had a situation where we're leaving practice, and then there's a group of kids who aren't even with the football team, but they knew they were over there, so they're hanging out waiting for them to come out, right? I think it was one of the kids' girlfriends was there with their friends, like, hey, I haven't seen him in a couple months, so I want to go see him today. It's like, hey, guys, I can see you. It's a chain link fence, right? You're not hiding, so please go home. So being responsible, and so we're having conversations with our coaches, trying to figure out strategies to get the kids in and out of the facility safely. And this is really about, in some ways, teaching, a smaller group of kids, the best way to behave, so that as we reintroduce students onto our campus, they can model that good behavior, right? Because eventually, right, our goal is to get everyone back onto campus. So if we are, in fact, getting kids back on the campus, can we get them to wear their masks? When they are close together, can we get them to be physically distanced? Can we get them to avoid, large gatherings? Can we get them to do the things that we know keep them safe? And starting off with a motivated cohort of 14, I think is probably the best and safest way to do it. The other piece, of course, is that we are taking attendance, and there's a strict rule. Once you get assigned to a cohort, that's your cohort. You can't attend multiple workouts. You can't do any of that stuff. And then we just ask kids and parents to just be honest, right? If your kid's feeling sick, if you think you've been exposed, just let us know, right? That's the big piece. We did have a student I know Gunn had a couple. I know we had maybe one or two test positive for COVID. And what was great is that we had a record of when the student attended practice. In both instances, the student, while had they attended practice, they actually contracted the virus outside of the facility, away when they weren't with the cohort. So we actually didn't have to shut down anything because we were able to contact trace and realize the kid had been gone for 2 weeks and hey, no one's been exposed. So it was good. So we already have experience kind of handling that, but we also know that if there is an exposure, we'll inform everybody in that cohort. We'll let the parents know. Obviously, we keep medical information confidential, so we're not going to say, "Oh, Jenny has it; she's the one who did it." No, we just say, "Hey, we've been exposed. Please go get tested and follow the county guidelines on quarantining and safety and on those lines." That's it. That's what I got.
Good morning, Coach Gifford.
Good morning.
We have a question regarding the ticket to play. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm an incoming parent, so can you explain a little bit about what it is and whether that's going to be in effect this year or not, at least now?
Yeah. So, we're working on changing that, right? The ticket to play was great when we could exchange stuff, touch things, stand shoulder to shoulder, wait in line forever. Those were great. So basically our entire ticket to play process is terrible during the epidemic. So we have to basically reinvent our entire verification process. So the way the ticket to play would work is you would go on home campus, you'd submit your information, you'd register, then our athletic trainer would get that information, you get the physical, submit that, and then you'd show up to the athletic trainer, you get a piece of paper, then you hand it to your coach, and that would tell your coach, hey, you're cleared to play. Well, we can't do that anymore. We can't have kids wait in line, we can't hand pieces of paper, so we're gonna do everything digitally. And we were kind of moving in that direction anyway. We just didn't expect to have to do it so quickly and so abruptly. So we are going to get it. The one factor right now that's kind of slowing us down a little bit is that Justine Yonke, our amazing athletic trainer, is on maternity leave right now. And she will be returning about mid-October. So I decided she's got more important things to do. So she's hanging out with her daughter and her children and taking care of and being an awesome mom. And we're looking forward to having her back. And so once she's back, and we're really going to try to hammer that out. But right now, the ticket to play isn't critical because we don't need that until, my guess is we're probably going to open up everything probably first week in November.
Nice. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Adriana. Go ahead.
I was going to ask, there was also a question about whether baseball or any other season 2 sports are going to have any preseason activities.
Some are. So like I said, basketball I know is both boys and girls. They're going to be doing workouts. I believe lacrosse is going to be doing some activities. Badminton may be doing some activities. It really is going to depend on the coach. I did speak to Coach Fukuhara. He wasn't able to make it last night. He had a family emergency, but he said that they're not going to be doing anything immediately, mainly because the baseball field's not available. So he just we can't be on the field, so no baseball. But I do think that once the field is open, that they do plan to do some activities. When they plan to do it, I'm not 100% sure. What the plan is right now is we have monthly department meetings with all the coaches. And so as we move through, as coaches kind of get a better grasp on what they're comfortable with and what their availability looks like, we'll be meeting and then pushing that out through the website. So I would say the big thing would just be stay in contact with the coaches, check the website periodically, and just look out for the notifications that we're putting out.
Thanks, Coach. We have time for one last question.
Okay.
Folks are asking, what about adults and parents going to sporting events? What's the rule there?
I don't know. Talk to Governor Newsom. He'd be the guy. I don't know. I really don't. We want, we want parents in attendance. We want our kids in attendance. I really have no idea what the state, the county, or our district is going to want to do when it comes time to make that decision. I don't know where we're going to be in, you know, in terms of the pandemic and community spread. You know, I have seen other states, right, where they do half capacity or 25% capacity, or they've done full capacity, you know, and just enforced a mask rule for all the people in the stands. You know, I really don't know, and that's kind of like an ongoing conversation. We actually have an athletic directors meeting for all of the SVL athletic directors in 5 days, I think Tuesday, and that's, I know, is going to be a topic of discussion. One of the things that we're trying to do to address that is get streaming set up for all our sports. So we do have the ability to stream in our stadium. We do have the ability to stream in the big gym. We plan on adding 2 more cameras in the small gym and probably another one in the wrestling room. Right now, there's a wait list though for the outdoor cameras. You know, because a lot of people have the same idea. So Pixelot, the company that we use, has sold out as of right now. But eventually we would like to get one out on the pool deck, one on the El Camino field, and one for baseball and softball. However, in the meantime, we were in conversation with some people who do, students who do In Focus, and they're really interested in sports broadcasting. And I'm actually going to be having a meeting next week because they want to start broadcasting sports and doing, at the very least, you know, doing some broadcasts, you know, over NFHS or even over through our own YouTube channel. So the students have asked the exact same question. And I think it would be pretty awesome to have kids be able to go out, do the broadcast, you know, for all our teams, get them engaged. And, you know, that's the beauty of sports, right? It's not just about the athlete, right? It's also about all the other people that go into making these events special. And if we can get more kids involved, the better. So I'm a little bit, you know, I'm optimistic about what we can do with that.
Thank you so much, Coach Gifford. That was such
My
a
pleasure.
wealth of information. You're truly awesome. Thank you for everything you're doing.
My pleasure. Well, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thanks. And parents, if you had any questions that didn't get answered, so Coach Gifford's email is, of course, in the staff directory, as is Greer Stone's. And they're awesome. They're here for us. And again, thank you so much. Thank you to all the parents too for all your dedication.
Yes, absolutely. Good luck. And, you know, I know it's hard. I know it. So
thank you. Take care,
Keep it going.
everyone. Have a great
Thank you. Take care.
weekend.